Alright, welcome to Fox News. Alright, so I talked to Howard Schultz yesterday. He's running for president. I talked to him for a good few minutes. He came to my college around 1 o'clock to talk about his policies, so it was like a town hall meeting kind of thing. He was really open to being asked shit. I really by no means knew about this beforehand, though. I found out he was coming through during this, businessy exercise I was doing for a PR class, and these people from the local news station popped in, so I checked out what was going on. They told me and my friend about the deal, and Howard Schultz was coming. That was the news. And at that point, I was like, hell yeah. Wanted to talk to him, wanted to ask him some questions for a while. I mean, not that I ever thought I would, but he says that it costs too much money. He thinks it's a waste of money. So yeah, I was all about this because I'm completely on the other side of that. So this dude shows up, gives a speech, takes questions, and when it's all over, I walk up and, take a picture with him, asking if he'd take a question. He said, yeah. And so I said, I've been trying to diversify my news. I've been seeing analysts on both sides of the aisle say we can save $2 trillion to $5 trillion with Medicare for all in 10 years. What do you think? And he said, I think they're wrong. He then brings up things about the New Deal or Green New Deal, which I really didn't bring up. Whatever, he talks about the cost of things, like putting solar panels on all these private buildings, and how they aren't government owned and stuff, and pretty much doesn't answer the question beyond I think they're wrong. That's fine, whatever. He at least answered it in the beginning. I wish he gave a better answer though. So yeah, I asked him how he compiled his numbers. And he said, either according to his people or his economists or whatever, I don't want to just misquote him. It was one of the two. These people said they found different numbers on the issue. And so I looked at what Bernie Sanders found last year, and it turns out the guy Bernie cited was a little bit ticked off that Bernie was out there saying this stuff about 2 to 5 trillion saved. So this guy, Blauhaus, no, not really, but Blahous, Blahous, in July 2018, said this. This is the guy that did the study. It's not precisely predictable how hospitals, physicians, and other healthcare providers would respond to a dramatic reduction in their reimbursements under M4A, which is Medicare for All, well below their cost of care for all categories of patients combined. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, Office of the Actuary, has projected that even upholding current law reimbursement rates for treating Medicare beneficiaries alone would cause nearly half of all hospitals to have negative total facility margins by 2040. The same study found that by 2019, over 80% of hospitals will lose money treating Medicare patients, a situation that M4A would extend to a first approximation to all U.S. patients. Perhaps some facilities and physicians would be able to generate heretofore unachieved cost savings that would enable their continued functioning without significant disruptions. However, at least some undoubtedly would not, thereby reducing the supply of healthcare services at the time. At the same time, M4A sharply increases healthcare demand. Oh, jeez. Whatever. It is impossible to say precisely how much the confluence of these factors would reduce individuals' timely access to healthcare services, but such access problems almost certainly must arise. Anticipating these difficulties, some other studies have assumed that M4A payment rates must exceed current law Medicare payment rates to avoid sending facilities into deficit on average, or to avoid triggering unacceptable reductions in the provision and quality of healthcare services. These alternative payment rate assumptions substantially increase the projected costs of N4A. So here is the goddamn deal. Here's the deal with all that was mentioned. I don't think we would have any of these problems if we were in a planned economy. I hate to be like, that guy that's just like, we can sweep all of these problems away with this just one thing, but I mean, goddamn, like all of the things he mentioned, if you can label a thing that isn't solved in what he said, with a planned economy, call me out, please, but that's what I'm saying right now. So yeah, like I've said before, I know revisionist policy or social democratic policy, whatever you want to call it, will never work. You can't have capitalist and socialist forces you can't have them live in harmony. You need to, at the very least, be hostile to things like commodity production and try to stomp it out. But Bernie is out here acting like everything will be totally fine when giving people programs in a market-based economy. It especially won't be okay when you're disrupting so many elements of the market, such as insurance companies, like especially insurance companies. These jobs are lost and they'll retaliate in any way they want or can, and they can in a lot of ways. We can't negotiate drug prices here either, so those are staying at an inflated price. And by inflated, I mean you can get the same drugs at a 40% discount overseas, and that's according to Howard Schultz. So you can't just implement socialist policy in a market. Things won't work the way they're supposed to, even though they theoretically could if you're an idealist. But I mean, they could theoretically work too if things were produced according to use and not exchange. In short, my belief is if Bernie was actually for him and not this just monstrosity of a platform he's running, he could save hospitals from going out of business by making them one firm. Physicians wouldn't have to worry about being laid off if he consolidated hospitals. He could save drug prices by consolidating the pharma industries into one firm. Also, one last thing about the Green New Deal. Really though, this thing should never be about money, especially at this point. If the impact of climate change can't be significantly ameliorated or reversed, if you can even reverse it, in 12 years, we should be spending whatever money we can to save ourselves. And the system kind of owes us at this point, because if they're the reason renewable energy hasn't been the main energy source, and it could have been a long time ago. Jimmy Carter tried to do this a long time ago, but those plans were reversed by, Ronald Reagan and shit. It was more profitable to sell fossil fuels than to focus on nuclear energy or wind and solar power. But yeah, back to the whole, healthcare thing. Or, my idea of the whole, how it should work. I think we should switch to a planned economy. At least people are saying things like, oh, you can't have just a full-on planned economy. I don't know. I'm not a genius, but I think we should at least have a generally planned economy, have the typical form of production be, based on use and not exchange. At least, at the very least, have the typical form. And I think it should be much more than just the typical form. I think it's practical. I think almost 50 years ago it was practical, but it was very much sabotaged by the United States. And that was what was going on in Chile with Stafford Beer and Salvador Allende. That was what I was talking about in my last video. This program CyberSyn saved the Chilean economy during a huge trucker strike. It got 70% of resources brought where they needed to be. and it was the unfinished form of the system they were developing. If it can work that well then, it should be able to work very well now. It should be very efficient now. If we used that telex machine kind of system that they used. Yeah. I mean, that's really all I gotta say about this. I think Bernie Sanders he might be wrong about the 2 to 5 trillion thing, but either way, he should be going about it in a more left manner. And I think Howard Schultz is, a well-meaning guy. I think he's well-intentioned. I think he thinks he's doing the right thing, but to me, in my opinion, I don't think he is. If someone has an argument to counter all this and, argue for a market economy, which I think is, just completely contradictory, and I almost want to say I could never be convinced that a market economy is the way to go. But I want someone out there, if they really think they can convince me, at least try. But yeah, I think Howard Schultz has a little bit of a perspective problem. I think he's afraid to look at the planned economy side of things when it comes to things like Medicare for All. I think he only looks at Medicare for All from a perspective of a market economy. And same with Bernie. I think Bernie has totally lost his roots. He used to be, he used to be pretty down, if you look at some of his older videos. But yeah, alright, this has been Daily Fox News. This is during the day, not during the night now. Yeah, this is Fox News. Have a good day. Let me know what you think of, the questions I asked or my analysis of Howard Schultz. Just leave it in the comments section. I'll do my best to respond. No one ever comments on this shit anyway, so if I see your comment, I'm probably responding to it. Yeah, have a good day.